I have a special guest today on Primetime Local News. Leanne Nerfa is joining me. Leanne is the Regional Media Advisor for Elections Canada on the Alberta side of things. So, Leanne, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
We know the election is coming up on the 28th of April, and a lot of people are still maybe unsure of how they figure out where to vote. Of course, some of the electoral boundaries were also redrawn, and things have changed for some people. So let's start out with how people can find out where they are supposed to vote.
Okay, so you're correct. The federal election will be held on Monday, April the 28th. And to vote in the election, electors must be registered at their current address. So if you've never voted before, or even if you have, it's a good idea to check out the Elections Canada website and ensure that you are registered to vote. That's really easy to do. You can go online to elections.ca and use the voter information service. If you find that you're not registered to vote, you can register right there online, or you can also register at the polls before you go to vote.
Now, with some of the boundary changes, it may mean that there are some residents who are voting in a different electoral district than they would have before in a different constituency. So that really doesn't affect anything. You're still voting for the same party, correct, that you wanted to vote for. It just you may have to be voting in a different riding because of where the changes have been made. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So in 2023, there was a redistribution exercise that was done, and this exercise is done every 10 years to account for population changes. And so in Alberta, there are three more ridings than there were for the last election in 2021. So you can find out if your riding has changed by again going on to the voter information service at elections.ca.
And as far as advance polls go and people voting ahead of time, when do the advance polls open if people might not be around on election day or just want to get their voting done well in advance?
Right. So the advance polls will be held April 18th to the 21st. And for the advance polls, you will need to be voting at your assigned polling station. So once you receive your voter information card in the mail, which you will receive if you're registered, it will tell you where your polling location is. Even if you haven't received that card or perhaps you're not registered, you can still, again, check your registration online, check your where you should be going online and register that way.
I see there's also a mail-in option to vote, and that might be, I guess, for somebody if you're out of the country, or there are a number of reasons why you may not be around or be able to get to advance polls. But I believe that is something that you do have to get on ahead of time. Is that correct
Right.
as well?
Yeah, there are actually a couple different ways that you can vote if you're not going to be here for the advance polls or on election days. So as you mentioned, the first is vote by mail. So you can register to receive a ballot kit in the mail. We do encourage people to do that as soon as possible if you think that's how you'll be voting. You can request that kit until April 22nd at 6 p.m. But like I said, we want to make sure that we account for delays in mail and things like that, because we do need to have that postmarked back by April the 28th. You can also vote at any Elections Canada office anywhere in Alberta, anywhere across the country if you want now until April 22nd as well. And in this case, you'll be voting using a special ballot. Where you would write the name of the candidate you're voting for onto the ballot. So that's another option if people think that they might be away during the advance polls or on election day.
For those who will be voting in either advance polls or in person on election day, what should you be bringing with you to identify yourself at those polls?
So first of all, to be able to vote in a federal election in Canada, you need to be 18 years of age and a Canadian citizen, and you do need to have ID with you when you go to vote. So if you have a government issued piece of identification that has your photo, your name, and your address, something like a driver's license, that would be all that you would need. If you don't have that, you could bring two other pieces of ID that are accepted by Elections Canada. This could include your health card or a utility bill. The key with this is both must have your name on it and one must have your current address. And for those people who find themselves without any identification at all, they can have another person who is voting at the same riding as them or polling location as them can actually vouch for them. In this case, you'll both sign a declaration of your identity and your address.
Now, I know you've mentioned this a couple times already, Leanne, but again, for more information, finding out ridings, candidates, all that fun stuff, where do people go?
You can go to elections.ca or you can contact Elections Canada by phone. The phone number is 1-800-463-6868.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Leanne. I very much appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll chat with you again a couple more times before this election is over, just to remind people how to get all this information out. It's always good just to keep putting it out there because, as you know, not everybody sees everything every time. So I look forward to speaking with you a couple more times before the election.
You're very welcome, Stacy.